Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about Tyrion, the champion of Ulthuan, and the champion of the Everqueen as well. He has always been a strong legendary lord within the context of Warhammer 3, and also Warhammer 2. Ever since Tyrion was introduced with the launch of Warhammer 2, he has always been one of the more powerful legendary lords. But let's take a look at his situation following the release of patch 7.0, the High Elf rework, and the Tides of Torment DLC. What has he gained that has made him even better as a legendary lord? Well, one of the things is that the High Elf rework does end up playing to Tyrion's strengths. In particular, the building changes do benefit him to a certain degree. But that's not really the important bit, though of course having things like bolt throwers at tier 2 is a nice benefit, being able to recruit handmaidens at tier 3, also an additional benefit, but that's not really what makes Tyrion special with the release of 7.0. One of the important things is that he now gains additional influence doubled when fighting in Ulthuan. So in general, High Elves will be gaining more influence through battles. Like, for instance, over here, I just literally fought 2 battles with Tyrion and gotten 60 influence. So, if I didn't have that double benefit for fighting in Ulthuan, it would be 30. That is the kind of benefit that Tyrion has. And you can do a lot of different things with influence. Beyond the obvious aspect, which is being able to recruit good lords and heroes with good traits. I mean, you might just have a really solid reason to actually get Alistair the White Lion at the moment compared to before, because spending 30 influence on him was not necessarily the most ideal situation. And certain lords and heroes have gotten their traits updated, so you can even get a pretty good lord or hero with just 15 or 10 influence. Sure, you do still have the big expensive ones, which sometimes they're worth it, sometimes they're not worth it, but the dynamic has shifted on that subject. More importantly, with the High Elf rework, we now have the ability of confederating factions using the High Elven system. So for instance, kicking Tyrion out, I can take Alariel's seat over here in her province, and once I get this to tier 3, and I get Favor of the Phoenix King to level 5 by just fighting battles, I will be able to very easily, very swiftly confederate Alariel. And it works the same with various seats of Evres or Nagaryth, Crix, Katik, Safri, and so on and so forth, in order to confederate those legendary lords. This is a very significant benefit from the perspective that confederating High Elven legendary lord factions was always something of an issue. I'm not quite sure how the dynamic worked from the diplomacy, but it clearly wasn't working up, or at least operating on the same level as everyone. I do believe that it may have something to do with Guardian, but regardless of that, you now have a very different dynamic with that, because you can guarantee confederation with all the other legendary lords. So that means you don't have to, say, rush against Alariel to take control of Safri. You don't have to try and rush Southern Evres to sell it to Elfarian and then get the confederation with him. It means you can get Imric and Teclis and Alifanar, which you couldn't do before, not in the same way. It was always viable, that's not the problem, it was just that pacing of it during the course of a campaign that ended up hurting Tyrion especially so, and also everyone else really. On top of that, Tyrion of course remains the same way he has been, with the added benefit that he now gives +3 recruit rank to ship companies as well, not just Launder and Seaguard. So if I just take over a settlement, yes, there is a bit of a bug over here when you attack a settlement and you don't take it over for whatever reason, but that means you can get higher ranked ship company in your campaign as opposed to just Launder and Seaguard. I still think Spearmen are worth it, but you now have a reason with Tyrion to focus on certain different units than just spamming Spearmen and Archers, though of course that's always going to be really good. His Majesty of Ulthuan skill line is still great. His quest items, 3 of them, which can give you a lot of money, especially early on in a campaign, are still there. And you then get the extra benefit through cultural advancements, which culminate in spy networks, which give you vision across the map through ports, or sea regions are made visible to your faction. So that means various diplomatic agreements, trade agreements, and then of course, Lord Recruit rank, Hero Recruit rank for nobles and handmaidens specifically. And then you have rapid resettlement as well. Those are all very good benefits. And then furthermore, on top of that, your victory conditions have been updated a bit. You no longer need to defeat Morathi. I believe you did have to defeat Morathi beforehand. Now you just need to defeat the Cult of Exodus, with which you start at war with, and Malekith. Bit of a long distance to deal with Malekith, but it is better, and it is certainly a better campaign dynamic than having to deal with both Malekith and Morathi in order to score your short campaign victory conditions. But that's not even half of it. Because when we were talking about the High Elves, one of the things that hasn't been changed is the Administrator trait, which is available through Archmages and even regular mages. This trait gives you construction cost reduction and construction time reduction in a province, and it does stack. So you can have multiple Archmages with Administrator, and since Tyrion has such a huge amount of influence through his campaign, like this is just turned 17 and I have 400, it does mean that you can end up with a huge amount of influence to just recruit these Archmages and mages through normal means. Of course, you can still use the load save character system if you don't want to spend the influence. That is still available, but it is a net benefit that Tyrion is getting extra influence in his campaign. And the thing about faster construction and free construction is that it inherently becomes a kind of growth benefit, because constructing things faster means that you're getting the extra growth for the main settlement buildings compared to the previous tier, and it means that you can also get the growth buildings, the estate, also constructed faster, so ultimately you can get to tier 5 quicker than before with your settlements. But there is more, because the main addition in Tyrion's campaign, the unique mechanic that he has, I believe he's somewhere to the north, maybe even a bit of, there he is. The main addition in his campaign is with the Champion of Ulthuan mechanic. You have some from alliances, some from heir. So alliances will give you certain benefits, depend on which legendary lord you've allied or confederated. For instance, you can use the Blessing of the Everqueen to get Alariel's Blessing, that unique benefit she has in her campaign. So that's influence, control, and growth, as well as Winds of Magic and corruption reduction. That's pretty nice, pretty sweet. You can get Mistwalker benefits, as well as summon the Sentinel ability. Now, one might wonder what's the benefit in getting Mistwalker unit benefits. Well, here's the thing. You can ally Alfarian and just use allied recruitment in order to recruit Mistwalker units. So that is the benefit there. And of course, there's other things that you do have, like army abilities, reducing campaign movement range, reducing missile block chance, doing damage to an enemy force, or summoning a small force of Sea Guard, if you want to. But that's just for alliances. The meat of the campaign comes from the heir of Ulthuan. Champion of Ulthuan, really. You get things like Supply Host, which gives you a lot of ammunition, casualty replenishment, campaign movement range, and allows you to replenish in foreign territory. You can buff up a garrison. You can summon an entire militia force through a settlement equal to the size of the garrison of said settlement. Why is that so very significant? Well, if we look at some of the provincial capitals of Ulthuan, you can see that, well, for instance, the Gaian Vale has 18 units in it. Lothern at tier 3 has 20 units in it. Yes, you can spawn an entire army of 20 units. It's not going to be especially great one, but you can spawn one every 10 turns for 75 influence. Then you can make yourself immune to diplomatic penalties from trespassing. You can give all the characters in a force every turns 2,500 experience, which, given the fact that you can get a lot of heroes as Tyrion, means that you can level up those heroes and lords, as well as the lord leading the army, quite well. And speaking about hero capacity, while Tyrion may have a difficulty in terms of achieving a short campaign victory condition and unlocking things for that, one of the important things to remember is that you can confederate Alariel pretty quickly, and Alariel's Lord skill line, not faction effect, increases handmaiden capacity. Imric increases noble capacity. Teclis increases mage capacity for his items. So that means, because Tyrion has more influence than everyone else, and because he is in the dynamic where he can secure all of Ulthuan far easier than, well, really anyone else, that ends up creating a situation where, due to the combination of Lord skill lines and the extra influence you get, you may end up having the most amount of heroes in every High Elven campaign, at least in the early term. Long-term, Alariel wins out, without a doubt, just because of the lower tier of handmaidens and the growth benefit handmaidens give her. But in the short term, Tyrion is dominant from that perspective. Then there's even the bear part, where you can use military relief to target an army, cause a 50% damage, but finish construction instantly of everything that's being constructed in an settlement. So this can be used to, say, for instance, get the Sword of Cain very quickly, because usually it takes a long time for Tyrion to unlock that. But not anymore. And really, you can use it twice. It only has a 3-turn cooldown. Well, actually, I think it's 5 turns, because it's already on cooldown here. Or maybe it is 3 turns. Then all the units in the target force immediately increase in rank, +3. And then you have Champion's Demand, as well as Elven Initiative. Now, these two require certain research. So you require either Martial Law or Path of Cain. If we look at the research tree, Martial Law is fairly deep in, and Path of Cain is right after that. But looking at what these things do, Elven Initiative has a 5-turn cooldown, but instantly restores the target's army movement range. This is, by the way, better than, well, the cooldown is better than Aislin's, but Aislinn restores movement range for all of his armies and can get it quicker. But then you can also use Champion's Demand, which causes an ally army to be loaned to you and teleported to Tyrion's location. That is a pretty damn big deal, because it means you can just send Tyrion on an adventure against Malekith and have reinforcements spawning next to him. Between the fact that you can spawn a militia based on the garrison size, you can also literally loan an allied army and teleport it to his location, assuming he has vision with a particular faction. The vision aspect might be a bit of an issue, but then you remember that your research gives you vision with sea regions. And when you look at Imric, when you look at Aislinn, when you look at Teclis, they all are close enough to sea regions that you can gain vision with them, and then you can use, of course, the high elf influence that you're gaining intrigue at court to improve your relationship and get military alliances with them. Sneaky, sneaky Tyrion. He really starts sounding like a Skaven now that I think about it. I mean, I think there is only one true Skaven for the high elves, and that's, of course, Leafanar, but Teclis is learning. He's getting there. You know, baby steps all along the way, but he's learning. It will take him a bit longer, but yeah, there's a lot of possibilities over here in this campaign. The main limiting factor, I would say, is still his climate. He only has frozen, savanna, and temperate island. That could be improved, but climate is one of those things you can always solve with just a mod that removes climate penalty. So that would be my recommendation if you're bothered by that. But I think Tyrion's entire campaign is focused so much on fighting Dark Elves that kind of makes sense, I guess. Would prefer some way of negating climate penalties. Kislev got that with their rework, deep in the research tree or Atamans. But that's not available, unfortunately, for High Elves. I think it should be, but that's where I stand. Quistine signing out. Stay tuned for more, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, because there's more to come, including that big announcement Creative Assembly has coming at the Game of the Year Awards show.